Good afternoon. Welcome, Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Mark Verbois, and we're here live with Tangipahoa Parish Superintendent of Schools, Miss Melissa Stilley. Thank you for joining us, Miss Stilley.
Hello, Mark. It's nice to join you, and I'm happy to be a guest today. Thank you for inviting me.
Again, very honored. I know you have a very busy week, month going on, and I mean, take that outside of your regular day-to-day stuff. We're honored like you're here, and again, thank you very much for having us. For those that don't know, let's start off. Tell us about your position now. What's kind of your day-to-day job? Just most of us know you, but for those that are outside of the Ponchatoula, Tangipahoa area, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So, I am the superintendent, and so, we have a large organization here. We're one of we're not the largest school district in the state, but we're, I guess, between a medium and a large district. And so, we have 2,800 employees, we have 32 campuses, and we have almost 20,000 students. So day to day for me, I'm actually in a lot of meetings from day to day, and I'm out with civic groups and business groups, community and visiting the schools, and a lot of meetings in terms of strategic planning. We develop a strategic plan for 3 years, which is our blueprint. And then we work and follow up each week on where we are with each of our items. So I personally like to sit in on those cabinet meetings and those academic meetings in which they're planning all of that. So it's a lot of different, everything from student services to culture, culture and discipline, to the academic piece from pre-K 12 to the talent, HR, so maintenance of buildings. So it's a pretty huge, I guess you'd call it an elephant. It's pretty big,
Right.
and to manage it from day to day.
Well, I will say this for those that don't know, Tangipahoa Parish Schools is the largest. It flip flops, but mainly it's the largest employer of Tangipahoa Parish. So you being the head of that employer, like I said, I understand your responsibilities can go as small and as large as they need to be. But correct me if I'm wrong. You've been in your role for, I think, about 2 years now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so June the 18th of this year will be my third anniversary. So this is I started in June of 2018. So I'm right at the 3 year mark, and so it's amazing how fast that has gone by. It just seems like I just started.
Right.
So yeah, it's gone by really fast.
And again, for our viewers that don't know, many of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, like Ms. Stilley just mentioned, the strategic plan for the school district. One thing that me as a parent and as a member of our community that I've been very impressed with is the way you've been communicating, with the public. And most of what you see, like we're talking about the strategic plan, it's available online. You speak about it publicly. It's almost a checklist of the successes and the roles to come forward that we need to challenge as far as the school district. So we've been very happy from that, from a parent and a citizen standpoint. But for our listeners, like I said, that information's out there. So don't be afraid to ask. And, we brought it up a couple weeks ago. So,
And just Mark to add to that, we're at the end of our, we developed a 3 year plan, a strategic plan in 2018. The board approved it, and we've been implementing that plan. And so now it's time for the next 3 year plan. And so what's been happening over the course of the last month is, we did electronic surveys to every single parent, every student. We emailed it to them, to their student inbox. Every employee. They also did focus groups. We have School Leadership Center who's doing this for us, and they also did focus groups of students and teachers and parents, as well as one-to-one interviews. And they're collecting the feedback from our community and our parents and our students and employees. That, along with the test data and the workforce data, we're using to develop our next 3 year strategic plan. And so our timeline is that in June, at my 3 year anniversary, we will get our next 3 year plan,
Mhm.
approved by the board to begin implementing it as well.
Well, wonderful. Just from a Ponchatoula Live standpoint, one of the things that we love to do is we love to tie in your role here in the community and in Ponchatoula. Tell us a little bit about your background. I understand you're a graduate, as I am, of Ponchatoula High School. Tell us a little bit about growing up and being part of our community here from back from your high school days all the way through.
So, Mark, I was born at then it was 7th Ward Hospital, but
Correct.
I'm from Pumpkin Center, which is in the Ponchatoula School District, and I've lived in Tangipahoa Parish my whole life. I have 4 siblings, and my 2 older brothers played football and was in the band at Ponchatoula High, and are graduates as well of Ponchatoula High, as well as my sister, my little sister, who is an assistant principal now in Livingston Parish. So we have a large family, and I'm kin to the Davises in Ponchatoula and Coates and Martins, and there's a big family.
Wow.
But my family history is, my grandparents and even my parents were farmers, and so they grew strawberries and sold them right there in Ponchatoula. So we have lots of ties, and of course, Ponchatoula is near and dear. Even though I live in Laranja now, I have lots of ties to the Ponchatoula community, and very proud of my connection to Ponchatoula.
From me knowing you for a few years, I didn't realize how much that connection you've had with the family and our city. And we're always proud to call, any of our graduates that we've had come through here, we're always proud to tout those graduates. And, we've had some amazing ones come through the school system, and we brought them up at school board meetings, Heisman Trophy winners and Grammy winners and all the rest of them that's come through here. So we're very proud of our students in our town, and we're proud that you're a graduate of Ponchatoula and a fellow Green Wave with the rest of us. So thank you.
Yes. And I have on my Ponchatoula green today, Mark, in case you didn't see that. Yeah.
Well, I made sure I didn't wear my Hammond High purple, so I didn't have any of that in my closet, and made sure that didn't come on air today. So Ms. Stilley and I kind of joke around with some other area members of the community kind of about the Hammond and Ponchatoula rivalry we've had for years. So it's been a fun thing. Let's go into a little more. Tell us about after you left high school. Where did you go to college at? How did you kind of transition into education and through the steps that got you to superintendent that you are today?
Well, Mark, I got married very young and never actually planned to go to college. When I was growing up, my family farming was one of their number one sources of income, and my dad had some other jobs that he did. He was a ball maker.
Really?
And so when I graduated, I had thought about being a hairdresser and doing things like that. And I got married. I took the non-traditional path. A lot of people don't know that. They look at me and they think, you must come from a family of educators, and you probably knew at a young age you was going to be a teacher. And actually, it wasn't that way at all. And so I got married, and I had 2 children. And one day, I always, thought about going to college, and I wanted to do something in which I could, support my children and my family. And so I decided to enroll at Southeastern and become a teacher. And so I was married non-traditional, as they call it, had 2 children, and went through college and became a teacher. And when I started teaching, I just thought I died and went to heaven. I absolutely loved teaching. And so, from there, I started out teaching in Livingston Parish just because they were the first ones to offer me the job. So, we were struggling financially, and I told my husband, I said, whoever calls first, that's where I'm going.
Right.
So Livingston Parish called first. So I went to work over there and worked 6 years in Livingston Parish before transferring back home again. And so I was a teacher here at Laranja Elementary. Then I was a principal, assistant principal, and then a principal. Moved up to supervisor of middle schools at the central office, chief academic officer. Then I worked about 6 years at the state, working with school districts all over the state. And then I came back home again. So I've
Great.
kind of almost come full circle, and I've kind of done besides drive a school bus, and cook meals in the kitchen. I've
Right.
done just about every job in the system, I think, that and the nursing job.
I hear you. Well, that's really what makes you great. It's like I said, some of being non-traditional and some of your pathway, that's what really puts people at I always hear, what would you change? What you can go back and change? But my answer to that, I kind of say to everybody, if our paths were different back then, you wouldn't be where you are today. So that's a great story. And just to tie some things in, we talk about Ponchatoula and, some of the central office people. Those that don't know, I'm filling in for Parker Larson, who's our main host for the Ponchatoula Live Show. At Parker's office, Dr. Danny, we call him Mr. Danny, but Dr. Danny Williams, who was a former central office employee, and I know a friend of yours, works with Parker. And he's always been a big fan and very complimentary of you and your work. And like I said, I know y'all have had cross paths through the ways. And like I said, he's always been a great mentor to myself and Parker and many of us that come on the show. So it's great to hear, like I said, some of those paths that get you to the places you are today. So go ahead.
When I was growing up, I feel like that my childhood, and growing up is probably similar to a lot of children in this parish. In that, my parents really didn't talk about college to us, and it wasn't because they didn't think we were smart enough, and it wasn't because they didn't think we could do it, but they didn't know about Pell Grants and scholarships, and they didn't know, because I was the first in my family to go to college, and so they just didn't know about all that. And so that's why it's a passion of mine to really make sure that children and families know all of the opportunities they have, and that if they're interested, if they want to do it, there's scholarship money that's there's Pell Grants, there's ways to go. And so I just want to make sure that everyone is knowledgeable about the opportunities they have.
Correct. And I'll say, kind of talk about some of the work that you've done and your administration's done since you've been in office. I actually had a conversation this week, went out to dinner this weekend, ran to a classmate of mine. She's a few years younger than me, so she's in her late 30s. Same thing, non-traditional path. And she said, Mark, I'm interested in going to work for Tangipahoa Parish Schools. And she's been so worried because she didn't follow the traditional path, but she's about to graduate. She's in the process of taking a praxis, getting a bachelor's degree. And I said, that's exactly what everybody's looking for. There's no reason that you're no different than a 21, 22-year-old coming straight out of school in the traditional route. That we want people part of the community to be part of our school system. That's exactly what you're one of the successes that we talk about, kind of following one of those non-traditional paths.
And it goes back to, what a lot of times we'll ask kids in high school, what do they want to do when they grow up? And, we have them kind of decide if they want to go the college path or the vocational or credential path to get ready for the workforce. I mean, honestly, how many kids today change their minds? I mean, and I'm an example, and that was years ago. I mean, I thought I was going to do one thing, but then when I realized that I would have to have a job in which I can support my children and my family, I mean, you have to think, okay, so what do I need to do to get there? We want them to be equipped to do that. So people change their minds all the time. And I feel like that, this is what I was supposed to be doing. And I took a detour. I took the long way around, but God kind of brought me back around and got me back on track. And and I have loved every minute. I've been in this business for 33 years. It does not seem like it should be that long, but I could not think of a better thing I would rather have done with my life than to dedicate it to the children of our parish and even of the state. It's just very rewarding.
Well, and we'll say this too. When I talked to a friend of mine, like I said, she kind of has already made her decision going to do teaching. But we want talented, well-rounded community members that, if you consider teaching, y'all as a school board and administration have a route that if somebody, say, is an accountant and they decide, I want to do teaching, I have a love for kids, they can transfer, and you start out as a non-certified teacher. And of course, we want certified teachers. And the reason why I bring up your program is that y'all have put in a place that if there's a person that comes in and wants to do that route, y'all have a fast pass route through to try to get them certified, but it doesn't decrease their level of education. And like I said, they may have been a welder and they want to come teach welding, or they want to be an accountant, or they were accountant and want to teach that, or whatever it may be, that there's a route that y'all have put in to help certify our teachers for somebody who may not have taken that certified traditional route to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just about every week I meet an individual that has gone to college for some other degree, and they're working as an accountant, or they're in marketing, or they're doing something else. And they'll say to me when I introduce myself, that I'm an educator, and they'll say, I always wanted to be a teacher. And I'll ask them, I'll say, well, why didn't you go into teaching? And they said, well, it just wasn't enough money, or I thought that I wanted this really high-paying job, but it's not. Now that I have a family and children, it's just taken too much of my time, and I really do want to teach. And so we had an example of a young man that was he has a accounting degree. Worked in New Orleans, drove back and forth every day. Which was fine. He did that for a few years. He was married, began to have children, was missing their ball games, wasn't there for school events, and he said, and he was very unhappy. And he just decided. He said, I always wanted to be a math teacher. And so, he came back and went through the alternative certification program and is now teaching. So that happens, and it happens more often than you think.
Well, one thing I appreciated as a student coming through, now some of it was in college level, but my degree was in mass communication. So I had a journalism background, classes that I went through. Some of my most passionate teachers, instructors that I ever had worked in the quote unquote real world and transitioned to teaching or instructing. And those are the ones that carry that passion, that love of joy of, like you're saying, accounting or whatever it may be, into teaching our students. So it's always good. Like I said, we don't want to discourage anyone who may have that thought of becoming a teacher or educator, that there are routes and paths to take. And let me transition into that for, we talk about students and their paths. Actually, again, had lunch this week with Mr. Jinko, who's one of your assistant superintendents. Both he and I are on the Leadership Tangipahoa board, or he's in the class, I'm on the board, but we were at an event. And for those who don't know, Ms. Stilley is a graduate of Leadership Tangipahoa. But we were at Southland Steel, which is a large employer here in Tangipahoa Parish. And they brought up the fact of welders and having, not to discourage, but if somebody has a want and a passion to do welding and they're not a traditional college student, that there are routes in VOTEC schools after graduation. And both Mr. Jinko and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, we have it here in the parish at many of our schools that they have, if they don't want to take this traditional route as a student, we have pathways here. Can you kind of tell us about some of those pathways and some of the opportunities that students have inside that they don't necessarily have to follow the traditional college path?
Right. We have what we used to call years ago, we called it vocational, right? Vocational education in high school. Now we call it the credentials, where kids can get credentialed for a job. So they can actually, while they're in high school, be taught and get certified as welders and get the credentials. It's a national certification, actually. It's a test they take. So it's good for anywhere. They can graduate from high school and get a job making, $80,000, or more. And so we can do that. We do certified nursing assistants. We have many credentialing. And one of the things that we're going to do, that we've made a commitment to do, is to market more to our parents what all we do offer in high school.
Correct.
Because I think that if our parents knew, a lot of times students in high school, they're just trying to get finished with high school, and they're looking forward to the senior trip, right? That's what's on their mind.
Correct.
And they're not taking advantage of a lot of the opportunities. So even though we tell them, we email them, we notify them, we've got to get the parents very informed about all of the different credentials that kids can get. But anything from with technology credentialing, to nursing. We do certified EMT. They can graduate with the certification for EMT and go right to work with a Acadian ambulance right out of high
Correct.
school.
It's great.
So it's many. It's all kinds of areas. Logistics is a new one that we do, which is, you know, planning, not just like driving a truck, but like planning the logistical things with that, like with Walmart. So there are lots and lots of areas of pathways for students to take now, way more than ever before.
Correct. And I graduated 20 plus years ago, and I remember there wasn't a large variety that we have today. I saw the list not too long ago. One of my favorites, and, you know, we talked about Leadership Tangipahoa. I got to tour Hammond High School, and their cooking program, culinary program, has been, it's been amazing. That was literally one of the best meals I've had in our area, and it came from high school students. And the thing that I liked about when you talked about some of the basic routes and things that they don't realize they do, there's part of that goes along with, it's not just cooking. There's a part of running a restaurant, hiring, you know, materials, but food, and how to start a restaurant and run a restaurant. There's different sides than just culinary cooking, the physical food. But the program list y'all had was extensive. I've seen, we talked about the welding earlier. We have safety for the plants and the EMTs, that it's not just the basic stuff that we used to know far back. But tell me a little more too about what's been one of your favorite new things that you brought on with that kind of program, besides just the welding and the EMT. Is there any other ones that's just off the top of your head has been one of your favorites?
Well, I think the one of the things that, you know, we're really super is the EMT certification, and one of the things that we're planning to do more of is the STEM, the science, technology, engineering type credentialing. So that's sort of like a new pathway that offers many job-ready skills, like, you know, that helps them prepare for jobs right here in Tangipahoa Parish. And so that's an area that we're expanding upon with the high school for credentialing. But I think every year our goal and what we do is we try to offer more and more credentialing for students. So, you know, we're not satisfied with having, you know, X amount. Every year we're continuing to add more. And I think we need to do a better job in making sure the public knows what all the things that we do offer. And there's probably at least 100 that we offer in our schools.
Well, let's just to give the public some more information. One thing that I found interesting recently that I didn't realize is that, you know, back again, talk about when I graduated, about the year that I graduated is when TOPS started. So the traditional TOPS, for those that aren't in their area, it's a state funded program that will pay for you to go in school traditional college. But there is again, I use the word VOTEC, but instructional pathway. Tell us a little bit more about that program. Just like I said, I don't think a lot of people realize it's there.
Right. So students can the TOPS grant, the scholarship, can apply to a 4-year college, like, you know, if you're planning to go to Southeastern or LSU or Southern, or it can apply to a university. It's a university tech, which they can go to the Technical College North Shore and get a 2-year associate degree, or, you know, something in instrumental, the instrumentation, I think they call it, in the plants, and welding and automotive and all kinds of areas like that. So what we do now that's different, like when I was in school, is that one is every 11th grader takes the ACT. And we do the ACT at no cost to the parent. And that does, to me, there are 2 barriers for students to think about their opportunities in terms of college and career. And one is that unless it's a family that really is educated about all of the scholarships and grants and things like that, they don't know how to pay for it. They think we can't afford this. And then secondly, they wonder if they are smart enough, even though they probably are. They wonder if they can do it. And so the 2 things that we do for every graduating senior before they leave is there's 2 things. One, when they're 11th grader, they do the ACT every 11th grader. And what
Hmm.
we found is that the number of students that have decided to go to a 2-year vocational
Hmm.
or a 4-year college has increased since we've been doing that.
Great.
Because they know, okay, well, I had a 19 or 20, and so I can do this. I can go to the vocational school and get an
Hmm.
associate's degree. And then the second thing that we do is that when they're a senior, we require them to do the FAFSA. That's the
Right.
federal student aid, and those things can be very complicated. And
Right.
so we have counselors, and we also contract with career counselors to come in our schools. They go to all of our high schools, and they sit down with those students and they talk about what they want to do. They look at their ACT, they help them get the FAFSA stuff filled out, and
Hmm.
then they find out that not only can I get a TOPS, but I also get a Pell Grant to help
Right.
with
Right.
tuition. So then the doors open, and they think, well, I never thought I would go to the technical college
That's
and
right.
get a
That's right.
degree. I never thought I'd go to Southeastern, but hey, I got the
Yep.
money and I got the ACT.
That's right.
I'm going, you know?
And that's life changing for a lot of people that they don't
It
realize.
is.
The one thing that somebody asked me, just know that I'm kind of I'm interested in the school system and everything that goes on is they said, what's some advice you can give? My biggest thing is go ask questions. If you don't know what's out there, every person that I've ever met in our community, but especially through our school system, has been overwhelming to help. They want to give as much help and advice as they can give. There's more out there than most people realize, and that all you have to do is ask questions. That there's routes, and don't. I mean, I know you bring it up to junior, senior year, but start as 8th grade and junior high, freshman year, and figure out what pathways are available. Because, like I said, those are life changing for a lot of those students, and we've been very
Yes.
impressed. Like I said, what's out there that a lot of people don't realize.
It could totally change their life. And, we have 75% of our students are economically disadvantaged, or
Hmm.
76% are economically disadvantaged. That's, the majority.
Yeah, right.
And so if we can assist them with the scholarships through TOPS or through grants to further their education and get an associate's degree or a 4-year degree, or get credentialed to be a welder and get that national certification test done,
Hmm.
then we have equipped them to be productive citizens of our parish if we
That's right.
can do that. And so that's what it's all about, is breaking the cycle of poverty, and so that kids have a fighting chance to
That's
support
right.
themselves and their families.
That's right. It's great that you brought that up. But I had a conversation with another member of our community, and we were talking about the GPA for sports, and just had a conversation. But that was one of the things we had said is the high poverty rate in our parish, and really that's the first step and the first tool that somebody has to get themselves out of a cycle of poverty and generational.
Mm-hmm.
Because your parents, and it can go any way, but because your parents do X, you have opportunity anything you want to do, whatever it may be. And like I said, because you came from an area where you don't think you can, 9 times out of 10, you probably can. It's sort of exactly like what you're saying. And the tools and the help's there for anybody who wants it. So,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, too, tell us kind of about, when we talk about our schools and opportunities, kind of tell us how things have changed, in the last few years as far as just with the pandemic, and how are we been handling that? I think it's been a unique challenge for every education system. Like I said, to still offer those opportunities for these students in this crazy pandemic world that we have. I think you've done an excellent job, and I think a lot of it, what a lot of people don't realize, is you don't always know what the rules were. You were going off of rules that you didn't realize. But tell us how that challenge has been in the last year or so, and how those opportunities that we talked about. How were y'all able to do that in this last year or so? With the pandemic and the COVID situation.
Yeah, so definitely the pandemic was, to say, tough. That's an understatement. It was
Right.
very difficult. And, I mean, the fact that from the schools being shut down to then the coming back with restrictions
Right.
has been a very big challenge for us. But we have been able to maneuver and continue the programs and the things that we have been doing, like the credentialing program for students, and
Right.
taking the ACT and all of those things. We've been doing those, and we with the virtual learning, we did the one-to-one computers for all of our students with the
Mm-hmm.
CARES Act money. We were able to accomplish that, do the platform for virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge with the virtual learning was the staffing the virtual learning with enough staff without pulling them from your
Right.
schools. So what we had to do was we had teachers doing both. They were teaching students in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
face to face, in person, and then they were teaching students virtually. So we were able to get through. We have a few weeks left of the month of May. And then in August, when we start back, we have a registration period for virtual, and parents have to register for that. And then we'll have separate teachers for virtual. So we've learned
Right.
a lot this year with that. But as far as our regular programs and continuing our credentialing for students and welding and
Right.
CNA and all those things, we've been able to continue all that with the restrictions of social distancing and wearing the mask and all those things. We've been able to continue to do that, but it's been a very challenging year, and we're looking and hopeful to get on the other side of the pandemic for sure.
Right. And for those that don't know, like I said, our school systems, y'all have, since you've been in administration, we laughed as Robbie took over, I think, not long after the floods happened. When you came in, y'all have had the pandemic and they had the system crash, and y'all have just been, I think we had floods ourselves, and it's just been one thing after another that y'all have just been knocking down a challenge and just knocking each situation down. Like I said, I know it's been a challenging side for y'all, but it's been impressed how on the back end, how we've come out of it, how the students, your administration, the staff have done an amazing job. And like I said, it's very impressive how y'all got to this point. Let's transition a little bit into, we talked about teachers and staff. The big thing that we have going on lately is this coming weekend, we have our 1 cent sales tax, or excuse me, half-cent sales tax that is going on to the rolls this weekend for the ballot. Tell us a little bit about where that came from, the decision to put that on there, and why we decided to put that on to the ballot for this weekend.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll start from the beginning, which is we have, Tangipahoa Parish school system has lost its competitive edge. So what we see and what we see happening over the course of the years is that one, we have a challenge in recruiting teachers, and not just teachers, but all positions, bus drivers, and it's getting harder every year to go to job fairs when you have vacancies, and individuals from other districts can pay more money, so it's a challenge to do that. So that's each year it seems to get worse and worse, and so we have been wanting to do this to try to get the additional revenue to address the competitive wages, and it never just seemed to be the right time. It was like you said, we had the cyber attack. Then it took us months to get over that because we literally lost everything with technology, and then of course the pandemic hit. And so we just felt like that we couldn't go into another year without being able to be competitive with recruitment and retaining our teachers. Just yesterday, I got a call from our academic person who said, "Miss Stilley, one of our best teachers is going to Livingston. They just called me."
Wow.
And I asked him to please hold on and let's see what happens Saturday. And but it's killing us. And so, I've said this before, you can have the best you can have computers for everybody, which we do. You can have the best programs, you can have the best curriculum, you can have the best buildings, you can have all of that, but it's the people that you have doing the jobs every day and our ability to get the best and keep them here that makes all the difference. So that's really the why behind why we're doing
Correct.
that.
Correct.
And then the sales tax idea, in the past elections that we've had, in previous years, I think the last one was in 2017, before I became superintendent, but they were property taxes, and we had a lot of opposition from landowners, and they would say, we want a tax that everyone pays, not a tax that some people pay.
Right.
And so I've heard that continually over the past 3 years. And so in December, we did a poll of the citizens of Tangipahoa Parish. And again, that poll came back and it was more favorable with sales tax than property tax. So that's the reason why we're doing the sales tax. We tried to ask for as least little bit that we could,
right.
To do something to be competitive. And so we asked for the half penny. Of course, it does not impact groceries and prescription drugs are exempt from that. So those the things we buy the most are not taxed.
Correct.
And so that's really the why behind and the timing. It's like I told our team was talking and our board. I mean, when is it ever a good time? I mean,
that's right.
We've had 2 major disasters, basically. Who knows what's going to happen
That's right.
next year,
Right.
So if we're if we're waiting for the right time, I mean, who knows when that'll be? So we just decided that, we're going to listen to number one, we're going to listen to what the people have told us,
right.
which is they want a sales tax. And we're gonna focus it rather than trying to do 3 or 4 things with it, like do this, do that, do this. We're gonna focus it on the thing that we know will have the most impact on student achievement.
That's right.
And then we're gonna do just one step at a time. Let's do that. And let's just keep it simple. And so that's kind of the thought process behind the whole thing and why now.
Right. And for the viewers that don't know, I actually sit on what we call the EFID board, which is the Education Facilities Improvement District board that actually is putting the tax proposal on the ballot. But with that being said, when I got a hold of some of the data that you've given to our board, to the community, some of the things that I think that our community needs to understand, that some know, some don't, but how we are the least funded per pupil district in the state of Louisiana, which nationally as a state, we're not well funded for education. But that when we look at, like you're saying, putting it back to where it matters the most, this year as a pandemic should show everybody the need for qualified teachers and the role that they play in a student's education. Without having the qualified and proper teachers, it all falls apart. It's like you're saying, you give them the best tools in the world to a carpenter, but if they're not trained to do it or know what they're doing, it doesn't make a difference. Tell us a little more kind of about that, the funding issue, and if there's some of the other information. Like I said, I can go on and on, but I'm trying to give you the opportunity of how odd funding is as far as our district compared to other districts in the state.
Right. So the State Department of Education produces a report. You can find it on their website. And it looks at all the districts and their local and state funding. And it ranks districts according to the amount of funding you receive per student. So I guess it takes the full amount, divides it over the number of students, and you get per student funding. And Tangipahoa Parish school system is 69th out of 69. So we're dead last in the amount of funding that we receive to support our public education of our students. But they also produce a report that looks at, out of the funding that you do receive, they look at to see where the funding goes. And we are number three in the state for taking the money that we have and putting it in the classroom to impact the children. And that's something that we've been working hard on for especially the last 3 years, because, I'm a recovering teacher. So I've been there. You know, I have grandchildren, and I want to see the money going to help the children the most. And
Right.
what is it? How do we impact them? But you know, we write every grant that we can apply for. You know, federal grant, state grant, independent grants. But grants are, it's one-time money. It'll be
Right.
like for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And so you can't write grants to do pay increases. You can't
Correct.
do competitive wages. You got to have something that's going to be sustainable for a few years to do, you know, not more than 3 to do something like that. So
Right.
that's a real concern. And you know, it just goes back to our ability to, you know, recruit and retain and keep them here. You know, we train them up and do a lot of professional development, and they get a few years of teaching under their belt, and then they figure out that they can go to our neighboring parishes and make, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 more. So
Right.
that's what's
And
happening
am I
here.
right? This is going to put us on par with St. Tammany and Livingston, two of our biggest competitors. That if this tax goes through, we're going to be very, very competitive with their pay. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, for example, a first year teacher pay, first year, uh, we would be higher than Livingston Parish, higher than what
Hmm.
they offer, which is great. And then we would be within $300 a year, $300 a whole year to St. Tammany. But we're gonna
Right.
work to try to see how we can have other things to attract to offset the 300. Like, one thing that we do already is that the school system pays a supplemental health insurance for all of our employees who
Correct.
want it.
That's right.
And so they can get a cheaper insurance plan, and then we pay the supplemental, and they have no out of pocket
Hmm.
expenses. And so that's another recruitment tool
Right.
that we use to attract them here as well. But
Yeah.
it comes down to the money and being able to offer them that.
Right. And you know, when we talk about funding and where we're at, what a lot of people don't realize, and this was big for me, is, you know, on average, the school system's budget's about $200 million a year. 90% of that goes to these benefits for staff and pay, their pay and benefits for those staff members. So, you know, when we say we're putting every dime that you can back to these staff members, that's absolutely correct. I mean, you're, what do they say, squeezing blood out of a turnip,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get every penny out of it. And I think what the other thing that people need to understand too is, by law, y'all have to have a balanced budget. And if for many years, you know, people say, like you were talking about with the grant situation, some years we have a little more money, whether it be sales or there's able to pinch pennies, what little you have. But generally, if y'all have extra money, that goes to what we traditionally in the area call the 13th check. So,
Yes.
but you can't offer that every year. Once it becomes a raise, it becomes permanent. So if there's extra money, you still give it back to the teachers. It's just not always can be done in a pay raise type situation. So that's why the half penny sales tax now will give a quote unquote permanent pay raise for the life of the tax proposal, which is 15 years. But tell a little more about that in the 13 check and kind of the difference between that and a pay raise. I think the citizens kind of need to understand the difference in that.
Right. So in November, December of last year, that was 2020, what happened since COVID, since March, is our sales tax collections were up in the parish. And, you know, our school district is primarily funded. It is funded by 2 pennies sales tax. And so when the sales tax collections are up, then we see those dollars, that additional revenue. And so we had been seeing that trend, and we had collected more of the sales tax. And so what we wanted to do was, you know, is give a 13th check. And so what we did was we gave employees a $600 13th check, but it's not something that's in their salary schedule that's permanent every year. It's just
Right.
like if we have the extra funds, it's just something we tried to do again. We couldn't at that time give them a pay raise, but we could try to give them something because we had the extra collections.
And what a lot of the staff and the citizens don't always understand too. There have been years that there haven't been enough money to do the 13th check.
No.
So that's kind of what we're trying to explain, is that some years there's money there and some years it's not. That if you promise, and let's give some numbers here, the half-cent sales tax is supposed to be about $12 million on estimate. Like a 13th check, I think on average is $4 to $5 million a year. So this $12 million that we're estimating that should come in every year, that now is a revenue source that allows permanent, like I said, or at least the life of this tax proposal, pay raises for these citizens. So with that being said too, I don't want to get away from it before we run out of time, but tell us the nice little lanyard bonus that the state will give Tangipahoa Parish School System if we pass a parish-wide dedicated education tax.
Well, the state funding mechanism is pretty interesting. And the way it works is that when a local community supports its schools with additional revenue by imposing tax, the state actually gives the district additional money for nothing. Like, it gives you the additional state funding just because you pass additional revenue. So if on the Saturday, if the taxpayers and citizens of Tangipahoa Parish pass this half-penny sales tax, the school district will get an additional $5 million per year for every year that we collect the tax. So if the tax is for 15 years, we collect $5 million for each year for 15 years. And so that 15 million, of course, we have earmarked that to go for some specific areas that benefit children directly, as well, like reduced classroom sizes. We wanted to offer more STEM pathways for high school students and credentials. We want to do before and after school programs to help students to accelerate their learning and to fill learning gaps. We want to offer more pre-K classes. A lot of people don't realize that pre-K is not funded through the MFP funding.
Yeah, correct.
It is not. We fund pre-K by writing grants. And so we wanted to be able to offer more pre-K classes in the district with the additional funding. And then also the other area is to offer more music and art and foreign as elective type for elementary, like foreign language, robotics, STEM, art, music. Some of our elementary schools have art and music, but it's not consistent across the parish. And one of the things that we're seeing, Mark, is our band program at the high school level. If you go to the football games in the different 7 high schools that we have, you'll find that we have 1 or 2 high schools that have bands, maybe 3. And part of the reason for that is because, high school band doesn't start in high school. You start in elementary school with music, getting those kids interested. And then in junior high, offering them, that's when they, in elementary, they did the little flute things and they'll learn how to do a few things. And then in junior high, they learn more instruments. And then that builds your band program. And so that's something also that's very important to me, because there's nothing worse than going to a football game and not having that band playing. I mean, it just does something.
That's
for
experience.
The whole spirit.
Correct.
You look at Ponchatoula. I'll take Ponchatoula as an example. Ponchatoula Junior High, they have a bigger band than some high schools, but that's feeding into Ponchatoula High. And then Vineyard and the other elementaries have some type of little music program that prepares those kids for the junior high and the high school. So it starts in elementary, and that's something that we want to do with the extra money that we get in the state funding with this $5 million.
Correct. And it's funny you say that. I had a conversation with somebody today. I saw a little snippet online. Ponchatoula's choir sang at the Kiwanis Club locally here in Ponchatoula. And from when I went back to school in the 90s to now, the music program that's come through Ponchatoula has been amazing. And these type funding gives those opportunities that we may not be able to offer without them. And I will say too, with the pre-K program, I have 2 kids that are 4 and 6, and my son's gone through. He's now in kindergarten, but he went through the pre-K program. And when we go back to the poverty that we talk about, when you look at starting the child as early as they can to get as much information into them. That pre-K program is so imperative for communities, like I said, especially high on the poverty rate like we have here locally. And like I said, it's that those type of, and we call it free money, but it's, it's money coming from the state that by passing this tax, they're essentially just give us an extra $5 million a year to use on these amazing programs. Let's also too, I want to go back. I know we mentioned it and we talk about our teachers and what this pay raise would do for them, but go back to the challenges that we had in the pandemic and how this will help with our staffing. Bus drivers has always been the big one. Like I said, cafeteria workers, our secretaries, nurses, anybody that, janitorial staff. We always talk about the staff and they are the core and they're going to get the information out. But without the outside supplemental staff, none of it happens. We'd all be standing in the field somewhere trying to teach our kids. So tell us a little more about how this money is going to impact those staff members.
Right. So the support staff are included in this. And, we have said publicly that this is a 7% minimum because, with sales tax, as collections can be up and
right.
many times are up. And so this is a 7% minimum increase, and it includes bus drivers, from everybody who picks the child up in the morning to our cafeteria staff that feeds them breakfast and lunch, to our nurses, to our paraeducators, our custodians and janitors that keep the buildings clean. And I can tell you that we have done the salary comparisons. What we're trying to do, the purpose of this additional revenue, this half penny, is to get competitive. And
right.
It's not only to get competitive to bring the very best talent to teach our children, but it's also to get competitive to fill our vacancies for bus drivers and have custodians, fill those vacancies, secretaries, and so forth,
right.
and keep the best. And so our support staff, when we did the comparison charts of looking at where our district is in paying support staff compared to other districts, it was really upsetting to me.
Right.
And I had never seen those before. We had never actually studied it. Not since I had been superintendent.
Right.
And so it was eye-opening. And so we are committed. What I want the people to know and what I want our employees to know is that this administration and this board is committed to getting our salaries, all of our salaries, competitive. And I've used this example a million times, and people probably have already heard it, but a bus driver can start off and live in Tangipahoa, St. Tammany Parish, making more than one of ours has been driving for 20 years.
That's right. Correct.
And that shouldn't be happening.
And what people don't, and we talk about this, the teachers and what they did through the pandemic. Some of the extra stuff that's been going on that we were not able to do for the kids that people don't realize is janitorial staff actually has extra work now. They've been doing an amazing job trying to keep our schools clean and sanitized. I know when the pandemic first started, we have cafeteria workers that were out providing lunches, on off periods that students can come pick up during any of our breaks. That it's all just been, those are the staff members too. Like I said, that really keeps the wheels turning and allows the teachers to do what they need to do best. Those, how amazing those staff members have been. Not to get off the tax, but tell us a little what you said, the school board member at school board meeting. Tell us about the new thing that we're getting. Or I say new thing that we're getting for the third year that we've had for the last 2 years. That's going to be a great addition for next year with the free lunches and free breakfasts again.
Right. We've been lucky enough and blessed enough to be a part of a special program that allows all of our students in the parish, every single student has a free breakfast and a free lunch every single day. And so before the school board meeting on Tuesday, I received an email from our director of school food service, Ms. Kendra Reed, that said that we were granted another and approved for extension of another year. So we'll have actually another year, that would be 2021-22 school year, of free breakfast and lunch for all of our children. And we're super excited about that.
Correct. And like I said, to offer that for students in a high poverty parish, that it's so important for so many of them. And again, it's sort of like these support staff. It lays the groundwork for their education to allow them to learn, and they don't have to worry about having they didn't get lunch that day or breakfast that day. It just takes one less thing off their plate that they can focus on improving their education and getting where they need to be. We're kind of getting towards the end of the interview. I want to leave an opportunity. Is there anything you want to tell us? Any kind of new programs? I know it's kind of getting the end of the school year, and we have our seniors about to graduate. New school year coming up. Anything you want to bring out to citizens and get any word out?
I guess I would close by saying that, it has been a pretty bumpy couple of years. We had some major events happen, but I feel like we're getting on the other side of the pandemic. And I think 2021 is going to be our breakthrough year in Tangipahoa Parish Public Schools. On March the 31st, about 2 days before Good Friday, the federal judge in New Orleans signed our unitary status of our desegregation case. That was excellent news.
Right.
And, we're going to continue to do our very best to educate all children of the school system and prepare them for life after high school and, be productive citizens. And then, this tax on the ballot on Saturday, I'm encouraged. I feel like if we ever had a chance to be successful at this tax proposition, this may be the time. I do think it will be close. And I think that, people need, especially if they're supporting it, they need to get out and vote Saturday.
Right.
And then I'm excited about our strategic plan.
Right.
This is the next 3 years, our blueprint for the next 3 years, and we'll be unveiling that and doing public input with it from a large, the public and employees and students and teachers. And then the board approves it in June, and then we're off again. And hopefully we'll be in a position where we can attract the best and we can keep them here.
Right.
From the bus driver to the teacher in the classroom, everyone. So we're excited about this year.
I just thought about one last thing that I wish I would have brought up earlier, but I wanted to bring up that, we talk about, I sit on the Education Facilities Improvement District Board that has the proposition on the ballot. We want to make sure the citizens understand how great y'all have been doing with the money that you have been given. There is some new phase 1 projects that were approved without taxpayer approval.
That's right.
Within the last 12 months that they will start seeing. We have a tremendous amount of growth in our parish, but they're going to start seeing some new buildings, some improvements. The Sumner area and the Independence area, if you haven't heard yet, you won't be paying property tax that you were paying recently for the education system. Y'all were able to pay all that off, that y'all were able to take care of some of this improvements that were needed for facilities. But the citizens need to understand that this new tax proposal on the ballot is strictly for teacher, staff, full-time staff members' pay increase and does not go to anything facilities.
That's right.
It's totally separate from what went on. I just wanted to bring that up if you want to elaborate real quick before we get off our interview here.
Yeah, and so the half penny sales tax for Saturday is restricted. It can only be used for competitive wages of our employees. It's illegal to use it to put a roof on a building or buy computers or anything else. Everything we collect with that half penny has to be put into competitive salaries. But on a separate note, you are right. We borrow. I call it borrowing the money. We actually sold bonds and borrowed the money. We're doing $27 million worth of projects, and we have expansions at Ponchatoula High School, at DC Reeves, at Champ Cooper. We're actually adding brick and mortar classrooms for our students because of the, as Mark said, of the enrollment increases. We also have additional rooms at Hammond High School and other areas in the parish. And so it's been, I don't even know how many years it's been since we have done this much construction, and without asking the taxpayer for any money on that. So we're proud of that.
And like I said, from a citizen standpoint, we're very happy to see that y'all have done that, and we're very impressed with what you've done with what little has been given to us. But we just want to make sure that everybody understood that this doesn't go to facilities. It is strictly for staff pay raise. Tell them about the website, Ms. Stilley, if they want information on what the tax is the tax proposal that's on the ballot if they need information on it. Tell us about the website that was set up.
Yes, we have a special website. It's called Tangihalfpenny.com, Tangihalfpenny.com. And it's a website just for the tax, and it has all kinds of information that you can read about it. And then also you can just go to our website, which is tangischools.org, and you can, there's a link there as well that will take you to the halfpenny, the Tangihalfpenny.com, to find out more information.
And again, I just want everybody to understand, if you have any questions, Ms. Stilley's been great about answering, but her staff, everybody that's worked for her, under her, any member of Tangipahoa Parish School System has been great. Don't make assumptions, just ask questions, open to give information. Ms. Stilley, our hour's up, but I wanted to thank you again. It's been a wonderful interview. It's always great to speak with you. And again, thank you as a citizen and as a parent for what you've done for our community and guiding our education system. And I know I'm excited for what's to come. Again, thank you so much for having this come on today.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And I value the time, and I'm happy to come on anytime and just update on the things that are happening. There's so much to talk about. And
that's right. That's right.
Times.
Well, thank you again so much. And thanks to everybody for joining us here on Ponchatoula Live. We'll see y'all next week.